If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Tonight's guest is Shawn Brackenridge. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Vic.
Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate your time. Shawn, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm 48, ex-military. I work for the government right now. Well, mainly with the military reserves, helping them be medically ready for deployments and things like that. I just came off. I've been doing this for about 2 years. Worked in fire and EMS for 13 years, mainly EMS as an EMT. So I've had my fair share of trauma events over the last decade and a half or so, and spent about 8 years in the Army Infantry. Came down, grew up in West Virginia, and moved to Texas after I got stationed here from Fort Benning, Georgia, and fell in love with Texas and decided to stay. Ended up going through some little college, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and ended up getting into fire and EMS thanks to a buddy who went in and enjoyed it. And then I got into it and enjoyed it for as long as I could until it, physically, emotionally tore me down. So decided to get out and try something different and take more of a desk job.
No, I understand. Yeah, you're in for a long time. And of course, thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
I definitely do. Shawn, you created Lone Star Cryptid Research. What can you tell us about LCR?
Well, just started it pretty much in the spring to try to document things I find and stuff out in the field. I got hooked up with a buddy. His name is Nick Lasoya. It was kind of accidental in a sense. We were on a Bigfoot page on Facebook and had posted something, and he started talking to me, and he direct contacted me, and we just started talking, and he had asked me if I had seen the Small Town Monsters documentary of the Dogman Triangle of Texas, and I was like, yeah, I think I just watched that just recently. Pretty interesting stuff, because I just started getting into Dogman earlier, well, pretty much mid last year. I had really not heard much about Dogman. I grew up as a Bigfoot fan and having a fascination with Bigfoot thanks to the PG film, but just over the last couple of years, especially listening to Bigfoot Society and Jeremiah talking about people seeing these creatures out in the woods that have the head of a dog and the body of a man. So that captivated me. And then when I met Nick, he was in Aaron Deese's documentary, The Dogman Triangle, talking about some of the Native American lore that his dad passed down from him to him from their tribe and stuff like that. And we just got to talking, and he was like, I need a research partner. He's like, would you be willing to go out with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we delved as deep into it as possible, because out in the area where he lives, about northwest, about an hour northwest of San Antonio, which is Lake Medina, Texas, there is a hotbed of activity out there, especially for Dogman. And there has been a few Bigfoot sightings. They're a little bit rarer compared to the Dogman stuff, but we've been going and spending a lot of time out in the areas out there, trying to find and clues and evidence and, things like that, and try to figure out, what these things really are, or at least educate ourselves. But just both of us have a huge fascination with them. And, we just get out there pretty much every weekend and do as much research as we can and explore as much as we can.
It's funny. Most guys, well, I'm not going to say most guys, but a lot of guys on the weekend, they want to head out and go fishing or hunting or whatever, watch some football, you name it. But you and Nick, you guys head out and look for dogmen. That's a different kind of pastime.
Yeah. I grew up around guns and stuff. So my dad owns a gun business back home in West Virginia. So I grew up around guns and stuff. So I like to get out and shoot, and I like to be out in nature. I love hiking. I used to pretty much go hiking every weekend I was off, and kind of like unknowingly going out in some of these hiking areas and not even knowing what's exactly out there. And now that I'm more cued into things that people see and things that I've seen already, it's changed my aspect of thinking about what's out there, and it has grown into an obsession now because I just want to know history of these things, what they are, why they are, as much as I possibly can. I know that's probably an answer I'll never really get the full answer to, but they're intriguing creatures. And, the ones that we have come across so far in that area out there haven't seemed to be aggressive, but that doesn't mean they won't be if they're provoked. So we try not to go out and provoke them, but we try to, make our presence known, but we let them kind of come to us and get to know us in a way where we're not aggressive towards them or anything like that. Because Nick always says that the more we're out there, the more they get to know our scent, know what we're like, and whether or not we're a threat to them or not. So the less we're a threat to them, he thinks the more, they'll make their presence known to us and let us see them more often. And since I started going out with him in January, we've had around 4 or 5 visual encounters and about 3 or 4 non-visual encounters. And it's been pretty amazing so far. I'm still hoping for that perfect encounter, but which would be similar to our first encounter. But only time will tell with that. If I get another encounter like that, I'm pretty sure we will, because we stay consistently going out as much as possible. And I guess that's why we get to have some of the activity we have, because other people will go out and they're scared and they have fear, and rightfully so. I mean, these creatures are no joke. But as with anything, I think if you don't provoke them and you're not aggressive, I think they'll be fine. I think a lot of the things is that they live on fear, and I think the more you fear them, the more it gets them off, in a sense, or they enjoy it, or they sense it and love it and try to extort more fear out of you to see how far they can push you. But they're definitely intelligent. There's no way around how intelligent they really are. I think people need to know that.
Yeah, that's a really important element when it comes to these guys that so many people really underestimate. It's good that you mentioned that. After having as many encounters with these guys as you've had, does the anxiety wear off now whenever you have a new experience, or are you more anxious with new experiences, I should say, as you were when you had your first 2 encounters?
I would have to say more anxious. It's definitely, there's 2 aspects to it for me. There is the great deal of fear of what the creature could do to me as a human being, as far as being like an apex predator. The size, the speed. The speed is that right there is what I finally got to see, that aspect of it 2 weekends ago when we had another visual and non-visual encounter in the same night. That created a whole different level of fear now, as opposed to the first encounter and some of the other encounters where they've been still or watching or, just studying you. But I do get anxious. I get even more obsessed with it with every encounter I have. Like, Rick would say, be careful what you wish for. And I've heard that from a lot of people. And I hope that one day I don't have an experience where, I happen to be injured or killed by one of these things or anything like that. But, before we go out, we typically, pray amongst ourselves for protection and things like that. I try to always wear my cross necklace, and I ask God for his protection. And, going back to like Martin Groves's, his encounter in the LBL, where he said that they were coming up on him before he could even move, like to jump in his friend's truck. He was talking about how he just started praying the Lord's Prayer right there and saying Jesus' name, and it kind of stopped them, at least in his mind. That's what he said. That felt like he was given enough time to escape. So I do think that there's a little bit of a spiritual aspect to these things, but I do believe that they're more flesh and blood than what we think. But there is a great deal of fear when I go out there, but a great deal of respect, because I know with what I'm dealing with, is a very powerful and possibly unhinged creature, and you don't know what provokes them to violence. And so you really have to be careful with your way of thinking, because I think that they can sense a lot of different things when you're out there. It's not just, your physical being, but I think that they have a greater sense of what's going on in your mind and your emotions. So once they sense a certain aspect, they, in my opinion, try to use that against you and maybe try to provoke you, because they know there's nothing you can really do to hurt them. That's just how intelligent I think they are. Even from some of the encounters I've heard on your show to other shows, people who have shot at them, and hit them, and they've basically just shook the shots off or something like that. It just makes you think that there's really not much you could have on you to protect yourself against them. That if they truly want to hurt you, they're going to do it. And but I'm one of those typical people that go out with guns. I like having the protection. It's not just for them, but there's other animals out there can hurt you. There's mountain lions, wild boars, bears, things like that. Not so much as bears here in Texas, but we have mountain lions that are coming into the area now more than ever. People are seeing them on the hiking trails. And they're sneaky. I've ran into a pack of wild hogs out at one hiking park that, it was a pretty intense experience, but, I like to have something of safety. I go out, I carry 2 firearms. I carry a small hatchet and a machete and a boot knife and a regular, knife in my pocket. So I'm always armed to the teeth when I go out. So if I lose it with one thing, then I've got another thing as a backup. So I'd rather be safe and prepared than not prepared and unsafe. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And you are well armed out there. You don't play around. You're ready to let the wind out of something.
Yeah, I don't. I carry at least, 5 magazines for my sidearm, and then I have a Kel-Tec KSG shotgun, 12 gauge, and it's with 3-inch shells. I think put about 14 to 15 rounds in it. So, and I carry some extra rounds on me from that. So I just make sure that I'm well armed and safe as possible. And I carry a medic kit too, so in case one of us gets injured, I can treat myself or I can treat whoever's with me. Since of 13 years in EMS, so I like to be safe on that level too. I always carry a lensatic compass, because you can't always rely on other ways of navigation. So I learned a lot of land navigation day and night when I was in the military. That was a must. So learn to navigate with compass and using my terrain. So that way when I'm out there, I don't have to rely on so much technology other than like taking pictures or video.
Holy cow, Shawn. When you go out, you are really prepared. You're ready for anything. Almost. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. All right, Shawn, please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Well, the first one was around January 5th, 3rd or 5th, somewhere in that area. I can't never remember the exact date, but it was right after New Year's because right before New Year's, I went out hiking on a small trail north of Six Flags, about a couple miles north of Six Flags, Fiesta, Texas. And I was actually surprised at what I found that day on that trail because I happened across a set of prints, and they were these huge 5-toe prints. And the first one I found on the left side of the trail, and from the left side of the trail to the right side of the trail is about 6 feet. And I found another print. So it had a stride length of almost 6 feet. And it was the first time I ever found any prints. And I got so super excited. Took pictures, and even though the pictures didn't really do the prints justice as seeing them in person, but that trail it's a 1.5 mile long trail. It loops around like a U shape. So when I started following it around, after looking through the area a little bit, I followed it around, and about the same kind of crossing line, I would say, from the other side of the trail on the loop, I found another spot where it looked like there was something that was struggling. There was like a couple animals. You could see where the grass and stuff was pressed down, and then I saw hog prints, and I saw those big footprints again. And I didn't have anything to measure them with other than a water bottle, but they were about double the length of a 16.9 ounce water bottle. So they were huge, and they were about half the water bottle size in width. I'd say probably close to 6-7 inches in width. I took some pictures of that. I put I wear size 11 boots, so I put my size 11 up against them, and it was, almost triple the size of my foot. It was just insane. But it looked like maybe a hog had been, had a little bit of a scuffle with whatever that was, which I think was a Bigfoot. And I didn't find any blood or anything like that. I looked, but it looked like, there was a struggle. Something was drug around, flattened out a lot of the grass, and then you can see where it was drug up through the tall grass, further up into the wood line, and gone. So I got super excited about that, and I'd already met Nick online at that point, and I told him about that, and he was like, well, let's go out this weekend. He's like, it's going to be decently cold. He said they're more active in the cold, it seems like, around here, and most of the sightings and reports he had gotten were, throughout the spring and winter time. So I was like, yeah, sure. Let me, get some stuff together. I wasn't fully prepared for what was about to happen that night. I didn't have a thermal yet. I didn't have a really good flashlight. I just had my firearms, some ammo. I took the best flashlight that I had on me. And, and that's basically all I had, really. I hadn't spent a lot of money into any equipment just yet. And, I didn't know what to expect first time out, and how, Nick would play things out, how he wanted to do things. We went and searched a couple different areas. There was a picnic area that he was telling me about, that the county blocked off for some unknown reason, but he had heard that there was an encounter there, where a couple was in their car making out late at night or something. And one of these dogmen came up and shook their car, and was messing with their car, and they had the encounter and took off out of there. And then not too long after that, the county shut that picnic area down. And it's still blocked off to this day. It's been blocked off for, from what I understand, about 3 years, and there's no reason for it to be. There's nothing wrong with the area. We've gotten up in there many a times, and there's nothing wrong with it. We can't find anything wrong with the area, and we don't understand why they blocked it off. And it's next to a ranch, so there's a lot of animal activity too. But we went and checked that area out that night. We went and looked at this other creek bed off of 173 going towards Hondo, where Nick works as a handyman. He has a handyman business, and he deals with a lot of people, and he gets to talking with them, and they get comfortable with him, and they start telling him things. So this lady told him a story about she could have swore she saw a werewolf in the middle of the road on 173 one night, driving to Hondo at 2:00 in the morning. She had drove up and saw this huge, hairy, dog-looking thing in the middle of the road eating a deer. And when she slowed down, she said it stood up on 2 legs and was almost like 10 feet tall. And it just like smiled at her with blood dripping down off its mouth and teeth and everything. And it had these really like bright, glowing eyes. And she said she got so scared that she immediately stopped, turned her car around, and went back home. And so we went down where that sighting was located, and there's a big creek bed there that when you look at it, it's almost like a super highway that goes up to Lake Medina and then throughout Hondo and Castroville and all that. It literally, you know, is a nice little highway to go south. So we checked that creek bed. We did find some weird prints. I found some Bigfoot prints there that was about 16 and a half inches long. I found another weird print. I got pictures of it. I still can't figure out what kind of print it is. It's kind of squared off, really small. The toes are really squared. It's the weirdest print I've ever seen, and it's not very deep into the sand either. Still to this day, I go back, I look at those pictures, and I can't figure out what it is. We found a few Dogman tracks that were about the same size as my foot, maybe just about a half-inch smaller. They could have been like juvenile tracks. And we had some rain 2 nights prior to that, so one of the tracks is kind of washed out, but you could still see like 3 pointed toes up towards the top that were pretty close together. And it's still a little inconclusive to me, but I saved the pictures anyway because it's best to save as much evidence as you can and go back and look at it. Ideally, I would love to get a LiDAR scanner, a nice top-end LiDAR scanner to take out so we can 3D scan prints and stuff and get a better idea other than what my iPhone camera can do. But so we found all that, and Nick was feeling pretty good that, you know, maybe we'll have encounters. So I lived in a little bit of fear that night because I wasn't for sure of what I would see or, you know, how my mind would treat it if we did have an encounter. But he was like, well, I'm going to take you out to the Holy Grail area where, you know, a lot of people seem to see a lot of things, and that's the Lake Medina spillway. A little south of the dam, there's a little bridge that goes over the spillway there. And it is by far the most creepiest area to be in. There's something about it. It's got an ominous feeling when you're there. It's almost like a perfect choke point, though, when you look at it on a map, because it backs up to the dam. But it's basically like it's cliffed, got pretty high cliffs on both sides. The curious part of it that I don't really understand is why whoever the county that runs the dam, I guess, they've got that entire spillway fenced off with 7 to 7.5 foot chain link fence, and not just the chain link fence itself, but there's razor wire, Constantine wire all across the top of that fence, all the way around that area, like it's holding something in or keeping people out. But that whole area is one giant choke point, and it's cliffed on both sides, and there's no real way of getting in there. They do have signs posted that there's no trespassing, you'll be prosecuted. And that's the only dam I've ever come across that's been blocked off like that. And I used to live in Waco before I moved to San Antonio. And the Waco Dam, I mean, you could hike all around that and have no issue with access to it. But this one is the first dam I've ever seen that I've been to that has virtually no access to it unless you're a county employee. But there's never really anybody there. And they have signs saying you can kayak or canoe, and that's the only access that you can have. But there's very little water in that spillway, so you can't really kayak or canoe. I mean, the deepest that water gets is maybe 1.5 feet. After a good rain, maybe 2.5 feet, but nothing major. So we went out Old Medina Dam Road, and we're looking, for as much as we could. What we could see around the truck. And as we were coming down the hill from the west side of the dam, I had Nick make sure that he was driving extremely slow so I can look out both windows. And as we got onto the dam bridge there, or the spillway bridge, I happened to be looking out his driver's side window, and I saw what looked like to be 2 large glowing green eyes that were super far apart, didn't look like any animal I had ever seen. And I immediately was like, Nick, you stop, look to your left. And he saw it, and he's like, oh my God. And I was like, he put the truck in park. I immediately got out. I walked over to the guardrail of the bridge, and at the distance, the bridge is about 15 foot tall. So at that distance, this thing was literally about 60 feet from us. But from that height, and it looked super close, but it was so dark down in there. All I could get was kind of an outline of the body and the head. But the eyes is what captivated me the most. I could not take my eyes off its eyes. It was like it was drawing me in emotionally, and the way it looked at me. And when you're close up like that, and I know other people say they're like an amber color, but this one, the color was different. They did change color depending on the distance. Close up, what I saw reminded me of Slimer from Ghostbusters, that greenish glow. I'll never forget it. It's like it's etched in my brain forever. And it's just how they look at you. It's hard to describe the feeling you get. There's a feeling of fear. There's a feeling of almost sadness, but intent. Like it's studying you, your every movement. And the way it moved, it started to move kind of like at a diagonal angle, backing away from me, but it was so smooth. I mean, it had no up or down movement. It was just smooth, and it moved ever so slow, and you could tell it was crouched down quite a bit. And the further you moved back, the more the eyes glowed more of a yellowish tint. It was almost, even the further back he went in the darkness, the eyes were like 2 big spotlights. And you could see the shine off the eyes actually shining and refracting off the water. And I know that no animal can do that. So Nick, he got his phone out and took some video of it, and we got about a 4-minute video of the eye shine, the best we could. and how it watched us, because it moved over to the tree line and brush line in there, and then moved towards our right. And it was probably, I'd say, about 75 yards away at that point. And it sat there and it would move back and forth, side to side, watching us, and never took its eyes off of us. There was a couple times where it blinked enough to where you couldn't, see the eye shine, or either pass by a tree and maybe block the eye shine. But it kept its eyes on us the whole time. I had every hair on my neck standing up. I was shaking. I didn't know what to think. I happened to look to the right of the bridge down the road a little bit, and I could have swore I saw another set of eyes in the tree line there. And I told Nick, I said, I think there's another one watching us over here. And Nick was like, well, I just saw a set of eyes over here on the left side of the tree line of the spillway. And I was like, great. So there's 3 of them. And we have one in the middle seemingly capturing all of our attention, while it seems like there's 2 others flanking both our sides, watching us and not making their presence known. So I was like, well, great, they're strategic. I said, so you got one trying to kind of lure us out in a sense, and then you got 2 that's watching us ready to pounce. And Nick's like, yeah. At that point, I got really scared. I pulled my Glock out of my holster, and I started to point it at the one that's in front of us. And it's like it knew what I had in my hand, because it started backing off even further and further. And once I put it back in the holster, I had almost, I'll be honest with you, I had almost every intent on taking a shot right there. But then something in my mind told me not to do it. So I put the gun back in my holster, and it started moving more forward towards us, a little bit more, watching us. And this encounter lasted for 45 minutes, close to an hour. It was like we were just having this standoff, watching each other. It was watching us, studying our movements, and we were doing the same with it. And there's literally virtually never any traffic in that area. But for some odd reason, right around that time, after I pulled the gun, within those few minutes after, we could hear traffic. And the bridge is pretty thin, so it's hard to have 2-way traffic going through there, and it's dark. So if you don't have any lights on, you could get hit really quick, because people do travel through there really fast. They're not supposed to, but they do fly down through there. So we hurried up, got in Nick's truck, and decided to go get out of there and go check out another area where he had a client of his who had multiple encounters on his backyard at his deer feeder. They were sitting around his deer feeder at night, watching for deer to come in and then attacking the deer and taking off. And so we decided to go check that area. I really wanted to go back to the spillway, but we ended up not going back. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning at that point, and we were both kind of tired and exhilarated from our experience, and we just called it a night. But we kept going back, and Nick had bought a drone, so we got back there one other night. I think the following month in February, we caught some eye shine that was about 30 foot up in a tree, and it was watching us, and that lasted for another 45 minutes to an hour, where whatever that was watching us. It was at enough of a distance, but the eye shine was so bright and so big. We're like, it's got to be one that's climbed up in a tree and is watching us. And Nick flew the drone over there. And what's weird is the video capability of the drone malfunctioned for some odd reason once he got close to it. So he couldn't take video, but he was able to get still shots of the eye shine. And then the drone just started acting funny, so he brought it home and called it a night with that. And we got that eye shine that night. And that was a very weird night, too, because we ended up getting out of there again and went and checked out another area. Then, not too long after that, we went to a different spot in the area, that has a small river and a bridge. And we're starting to kind of notice a little bit of a similar pattern of some of these areas, close to water, bridge for cover, it seems like, but always close to water and very vegetative. The foliage was super thick and very dark. We found some more prints. Nick found there's a cliffside next to this bridge. It's probably about 100-foot tall, and there's a house that sits up on top of the cliff that's always lit up. But even though that's lit up, you can't see anything on the cliffside, and there's so much foliage that covers the cliffside. We didn't realize there was an outcropping of the bottom part of the cliff there that gives good protection from rain and weather. Nick ended up going in there. He's like, "Hey, come here, check this out." So we go in, and we found what looked to be like almost a nesting bed that something laid down a lot of limbs in one little spot near the opening of that area and made it into a bed. And it was big enough to fit 8, 9, 10-foot creature just to lay in. And it was in a perfect area to be able to watch the entire den site, because that whole site goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet. And what's weird about it is you can't see into it because of the foliage during the day or night, but you can see out of it very well. It's just crazy. So it seemed like it was like a sentry bed or something. Like they'd have one of the pack lay there and watch the opening to the area as a guard, and then if there was more, then they slept further back in there. When we got in there, we were finding weird claw prints, and then we found small animal bones littered all over the inside, and it smelled like dead animal in there so bad that we're like, this has got to be a den site that they sleep in or something, or stay in at times. But there was animal bones everywhere. We took pictures of all that, got video. The weird claw marks in the ground, that's what's weird to me, because I've heard of, how their front hands are kind of like similar to raccoon paws in a sense, but look more like human hands with long claws. And anyway, you can see these clear, thick claw marks in the sand in there. Like they were walking on all fours, because you can't really, if they're that as tall as they are, standing on bipedally, the height in there is not going to do them any good walking bipedal. So, we're pretty sure that, at least in our minds, that those markings were possibly their front paws or their front hands with the claws digging into the sand as they would maneuver through there. We went in there with his dog, Darcy, and she was acting weird the whole time we were in there on one of the other occasions, because we go there to that den site every time we're out just to check it out and see if there's anything new. We'll move things around too in there to see if they move items. I did put a trail camera in there for a week and didn't have much luck with it. But I'm going to do something different here this coming weekend. I was going to go to a butcher and get a pig's leg, and I'm going to attach it to a tree about 8-9 feet up, as far up as I can in there, and then place a trail camera about 10 yards away from it, aimed at it to see if we can get any activity of one of these creatures, grabbing the leg or something like that. We've also wanted to try to use bait bags, putting some organ meats in some Ziploc bags and poking holes in them and strapping them to trees high up in spots to see if they possibly come and, mess with those, too, and place a trail camera on those. But as we were in there that day, Darcy was acting funny, and we got to a certain point that we heard something, and Darcy had darted. She took off. And as Nick was like, she's gone. I was like, well, that's not good. And right about that time, there's like this 6-7 foot tall, thick grass next to that area where the water's at in the backside of that den. And we heard something growl and shake in that grass. I mean, pretty violently. And we were like, okay, time to roll. So we slowly moved out, and it didn't follow us or anything like that. So we don't know exactly what it was. We didn't see it visually, but that growl was definitely something very weird I'd never heard before. So we jetted out of there after that. We've had some eye shine there. We've had 3 sets of eye shine in that area at night where he's messed with. He started flying the drone over the one set that was like 10 feet off the ground. And he was running video on that, I think. And that eye shine was really watching that drone the night. And the other 2 was trained on us, while the third one he was trying to mess with. And I guess he was trying to see if it would react to the drone in a way to kind of make itself known. But it was definitely watching that drone. It was that was a weird experience too. But the most recent, after that, Nick went to Colorado, so I went out by myself, which I normally never do, but I didn't even really get out of my Jeep that night. Both nights I went out. I went out 2 nights in a row, and I had to pee really bad. So I got out of my Jeep to pee, and I peed off the bridge at the spillway. And I mean, not even minutes after that, I got back in my Jeep, and it was kind of windy, and all of a sudden this really, strong urine smell come floating through with the wind. And I could hear branches breaking and movement in the wood line around me, 3 different areas. And I literally, at that point, I was like, I don't really like being out by myself if I don't have to be. I was like, maybe they're urinating and marking their area because I urinated in their area and they took it as, as something bad. I left out, and I came back out the next night, and the same thing happened again, but I didn't have any visuals, just the smells. And so after that, the sightings kind of dried up over the summer. And I started talking to some people around the area, the spillway, and they said there's a bunch of caves in that area. So we do feel like they den up in those caves. They have to have a decent place to sleep that's protected. So we have tried everything that we can find around the area using maps and everything to figure out how we could possibly get down that spillway. To do some more research and to push the envelope, I guess, a little bit more to find more evidence. But this 2 weekends ago, we had a super crazy experience, and it's probably been the best experience visually since the first one, in my opinion. But Nick, Rick, and I were on. There's a road next to the spillway that goes up into this, housing area. I mean, these lake houses, and they're pretty far apart, and it's very wooded. It's very covered and dark. No one's out ever at night in that area, which we find is odd. I don't know anybody in their right mind would probably even walk that road at night by themselves. So I decided to pull up in there and park. And I said to Nick and Rick, I was like, let's just walk this road. We've never done it before. We've never been up through here. I mean, the left side of the road is the spillway and the right side of the road is houses. So let's just see what we can see. And we started walking the road, and we got to one specific spot. And Nick was like, "Do you smell that? Is that deer urine?" I was like, "Well, deer urine isn't that strong." And we hit this really musky wall of strong urine. I mean, it was enough to knock you over. At that point, we decided to just keep walking the road, and at different points on our walk, we kept smelling that urine smell at random spots. We weren't hearing anything, and then we got down to one spot, and we stopped, and Nick and Rick were sitting there talking, and I kept hearing something off on the other side of the road of it. And I was like, "Do you hear that?" And they were like, "What?" And I said, "Be quiet for a second and listen right over here to what would be our 7 o'clock. I said, "I hear like something tapping or scratching on a tree." And we sit there and listen. You kept hearing it like scratching and tapping on a tree. And we were like looking at each other like, "Well, I don't know what the heck that is." And it wasn't on the spillway side. So after a little bit of hearing that, it stopped. It got super, super quiet. And we decided to start walking back to the vehicles. As we're walking back to the vehicles, Nick said he saw some eye shine. I never saw it, but him and Rick saw some eye shine on the spillway side. And we heard some stuff moving around in the foliage. As we got back closer to the vehicles, we kept smelling the urine again. So we got back in the vehicles, and Nick was like, "Where do you want to go? What area do you want to hit up next?" I said, "Well, let's go down to the spillway. And since it's right down the road, just check it out. And I guess we'll call it a night because, everybody's getting tired and, we've been out pretty much all night." So Nick and Rick get in his truck, and I get in my Jeep, and I'm the first one heading out. So I pull out and start driving down the road. And I always drive that road super slow, like 10 miles an hour. I turn my brights on, and normally when I'm leaving Nick's, because he lives in such a creepy area and has had so many sightings out there, I try to record my drive home on my phone, so that way, in just in case something would run out in front of me, I'd be able to have a recording of it. Well, I wished I had put my phone on record driving down that road that night. But I figured since it was a short distance, less than a mile down to the spillway, it was pointless to have my phone on. So I didn't even turn the record on. As we're driving down to one of the spots, the one last spot that we had stopped at, literally, I got the brights on and I'm driving, and all of a sudden I see this tall, lanky creature just run right across the road. And I immediately stopped. The biggest thing I noticed was the coloration. The head seemed pointed, but because it moved so fast, I couldn't make out the detail of the head very much, but I made out the detail of the legs and the arms. The hands definitely reached down past what I would call the second set of knees, because they were haunched legs. And how it ran was like it was like it floated. It was so fast. It was like it floated across the road, but it was so fast that it almost seemed translucent. But yet you could see the coloration of it. It was super weird. The speed was insane. I'm a trained shooter, and one of the hardest things in the military as an infantry soldier is to hit a moving target. So when you're hitting a moving target going side to side, you have to lead that target in order to hope to get a hit. And I can tell you from my experience, that thing moves so fast, there's no way I could lead that target and hope to hit it. It was too fast. Even some of the best shooters I know, I don't think could hit it. The legs were insane. They were thick, but skinny in the same instance. Like the top parts of them were really thick, and the small ones were very, past the second set of knees, were very, very thin. It had like a little bit of a small tail that I could see. The arms were super lanky and long, and it was running upright. But you could tell the top of the head was pointed, so it had to have been the ears. I saw just a little bit of a muzzle on it, but it moved so fast I couldn't get a good take. But the coloration of it was like an auburn reddish cinnamon type color with the back had like what is the name of that one dog that's out there? Rhodesian Rizback. And you notice how when they get super excited or aggressive, they have hair that stand up on the back of their back, almost like spiked hair. It just stands up. That's what it looked like on the back of this. It looked like its hair was standing up on its back, all the way down its back, and it was a grayish color. And it just shot across the road. So I immediately stopped right there in that spot. And Nick pulls up and he's like, "What's going on?" And I threw my 4-ways on. I was like, "Dude, one just ran right across the road in front of me." And I was literally I was like, I don't know what to think. I was like, the speed of it is what really exhilarated me, but scared me. And they pull up in front of me, and I got my flashlight out. I'm looking around the area, and Rick comes up. And he's like, "You see any prints?" I was like, "Well, it's too rocky. There's too much rocks here. Can't see no prints." I said, "But look right here. This fence is pushed down, and all the bushes and all the tree limbs right here are all crushed down onto that fence, and that fence is crushed down. And you can tell something big just went through there." And we looked on the other side of the road, and Nick found a spot where it looked like something flew through the trees right there too. So we just sit there and shine the light throughout the area. We're looking around. Where it crossed over at, where everything's crushed down, is private property. So we didn't really, and there's a house that sets back probably about 60, 70 yards behind the trees, but the foliage is nice and thick, and there's a lot of cactus right there that we didn't really want to get back in there and shine our lights, and possibly have, people on private property shoot at us, because here in Texas, everybody pretty much has a gun, and if you're on their property, you will get shot. So, we didn't want to chance it. But we could definitely see that something big just went through there and just crushed everything down. So what I ended up doing is I took a chem light, I broke it and lit it up, and I tossed it back in there about, 7-8 feet. And I was like, let's just kind of hang out and see if maybe something, reaches for it or takes it. We stayed there for about 20 minutes. Nothing happened. So we went down the spillway. So this past weekend, a couple nights ago, I decided to go out with this other guy who reached me on my Facebook page, who's a scientist, and he's very skeptic about Dogman. He's like, "I've never had a Dogman or Bigfoot experience." He's like, "I talk about it with my coworkers. I do believe that something like that exists. But since I work as a scientist, I work in fact and evidence." And he's like, "So I hope to find evidence." And so that's what I'm searching for. He's like, "It's not that I don't believe that something like that can exist, because I do." But he originally was bailing out for the weekend, and Rick had some things to do, so he couldn't go out Saturday night. So I told both of them, I said, "Well, I guess I'm going to go out by myself, because after the previous weekend's experience up there, I really want, to kind of hit that area and just take a look." And I was like, "I'm just going to go out by myself." And then Fernando, he contacted me back. He's like, "I'm not going to bail after all." He's like, I'll go ahead and go out with you." I was like, "Okay." So he met me out there, and we went in the area. We walked around, looked at some things. I showed him where the crossing was. He decided he would cross the fence. And I was like, "Well, it's private property." So I was like, "Be careful, just in case, if anybody drives by and asks us what we're doing, we can, get in some trouble." I said, "So just kind of he crossed over that area where everything was knocked down. It's still crushed down there and everything. And I asked him, I said, I threw a chem light back there. I said, it should be right over in there. I said, it won't be lit now, but it would just still be laying there. And I was like, see if you can find it. He looked the entire area over. He never found that chem light. It's gone. Something took it. So I don't know if that creature came back and took the chem light and thought it was a gift or something later that night after we left last weekend or not. I don't know. But I find that to be pretty ironic that chem light is gone, because I've went to other spots I've left chem lights and that are been used and not lit up anymore, and they're there, still there after weeks and weeks and a couple months. And I carry a whole bag of those, and I use them as basically gifts or something like that to kind of attract their attention if they're around, to see if they'll take it or something of that nature. But that one where the crossing was, it's gone. And then, thanks to Fernando, we found a culvert that leads down into the spillway that's hidden off the road, that crosses under the road and goes into the spillway. And he looked in there. We thought it would be a great hiding spot, but there was nothing in there. But due to the experience of going out Saturday night when everybody, couldn't go, and then all of a sudden he decided to go, and at the last second when he decided to go, I was like, okay, I'll go. And we've now found us a pretty decent hidden entrance into the spillway that we think that we can get down in there now. So something really good come out of Saturday night. Chem light's gone. We found the culvert. So now it's going to be a game changer as far as getting down in there and seeing if we can get more evidence in their area, because that whole area is blocked off. That's got to be their home. And I don't know where it's going to go from there, but next weekend we're planning on hitting it up. I've got to talk to Nick and Rick about getting the drone out there, taking a look at some of that terrain, and then we get out there early morning time, around first light or so, or a couple hours after first light, and start getting down in there and seeing how we can maneuver down in there and see what we can find. They have to be hiding in a cave or something down there, sleeping in a cave somewhere in that area. But we've started talking to random people. There's a shell station out there. We started talking to some of them, and these people are opening up to us. I've had 3 people work at that shell station now. One, the younger guy, he was like, I don't go outside at night here. He's like, I've seen things that are just weird. And the older guy that works there said he saw some big eye shine around his wood pile in his backyard at night. So he won't go out at night. We just met a lady a couple weekends ago that we had that sighting. And she and one of her friends have seen them. And she was like, I don't know what they are. She's like, but I've seen like these huge glowing eyes in the darkness out of my backyard. And she's like, so she's like, once it's dark, I don't go out. And I was like, well, it explains. I mean, a lot of people in this area, we don't see out at night. It's very rare that there's traffic, but it's even rarer to see anybody out on their front porch at night. Even during the summertime when it's nice, no one's ever out on their front porches, in their yards, anything, once it's totally dark. And everybody's got their houses and the area immediately around their houses lit up pretty well there too. So it's like the more and more we meet people and talk to them, the more and more we're finding that all these people are having these encounters with these things in that area, but they don't know what they are. And we talked to a sheriff's deputy out there too, who said she was getting a lot of reports of a bear. There's no bears in this area whatsoever, but people are seeing a giant black bear out there and reporting it. So we think it's misidentification. People are not really knowing what they're seeing, but they're actually seeing dogmen in the area and reporting them as bears. So that just And there's an old cemetery that we investigate out there. Nick saw an 8-foot shadow run across in front of us one night when I wasn't looking, and Darcy had ran and got in his truck and was hiding and shaking down his floorboard. So she saw something that really freaked her out, his little dog. We investigate that because they're known to be around cemeteries and grave mounds and things like that. So it's a freaky little graveyard. I'm not going to lie. I've never seen anything like it, but at night it's super ominous there. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of activity in the area. It's just, got to be, we stay consistent as much as we can and try to get out every weekend. And that's probably why we're having a lot of the success and seeing some of the things and experiencing the things that we're seeing and going through. So hopefully, my ultimate encounter really at this point, what I'm wanting to have is I want to have a similar encounter like the first one. I want to be able to see it up close and want to be able to have a good light and a good thermal, and like to get a good thermal image of it, but I want the light on it. I want to be able to see detail of the face, the rest of the body, everything. I want it to be known that I see it clearly. Again, I have to be careful what I wish for. But that's my ultimate detail. And the biggest issue I've had since the first encounter is the dreams. I've told people about the dreams. I started having nightmares after the first encounter where I was seeing myself on the bridge from the Dogman's point of view that night. I kept having that reoccurring dream. It was like I was in the Dogman's body staring at myself up on that bridge that night. And those dreams haven't really ceased. I mean, I have them less frequently now than I did after the encounter, but a good 2 months after that first encounter, it was almost nightly. And then one night, about a month after the encounter, I was attacked in my sleep by something that felt like it was choking me underneath my comforter. And once I said the name Jesus, I grew up in a Christian household. My mom's always said, if you feel like you're being attacked by evil, always bring out Jesus' name. It'll make them flee. And as soon as I said that night, and whatever it was that was attacking me or choking me, it went away. So now, mostly every night I try to go to bed and I specifically play Psalm 91 as a prayer of protection. And not much of any of that kind of stuff is happening. But that's where I started to tie in a little bit of the paranormal with these things. Whether or not they're these evil creatures, I don't know. I do go back to the Bible about certain things, and Revelation's talking about in the end times that God will release the beasts of the earth, and that a third of mankind will die of fear, heart attacks of seeing these creatures. And I've heard so many stories of people talking about the fear and the anxiety and their regret of even seeing these things. Like, I think you interviewed this guy, Casey, in New Hampshire. His encounter was insane to me, and how what he experienced was kind of similar to what I would like to experience, but then don't want to experience. And in a way, I kind of envy his experience, but in a way, I don't. I'm kind of half and half torn on that, because I know those kinds of experiences affect people differently. And I know it affected him in a very severe way. I don't know how it would affect me in my mindset, because I'm able to compartmentalize things differently than a lot of people. And I have a good, healthy fear, but I also am the type of person with my faith. I believe in Jesus. All my faith and hope is in him. And I don't fear much, because I know that he won't allow anything happen to me if he doesn't want to allow it. That I have his hedge of protection around me. So maybe in a sense, I have a little bit of arrogance when I go out about that, and maybe I shouldn't. but that is kind of my mindset when I go out. There is fear there, but there is also, that hope and that feeling of protection. And, so far it's been good. And so far the ones that we've come across have not been aggressive in any sense. And like Nick says, he believes the more we're out there, the more they want to more they either trust us or don't feel that we're aggressive, and they show themselves more to us. Nick really wants to communicate with them. He wants to actually be able to talk to them in some way. He thinks that there's like a telepathic connection, and he thinks, I've talked to a couple people in this field that think that maybe after my experience in the dreams and things, that maybe there's a telepathic connection between me and this one creature. I don't know, but it is an interesting theory. Maybe once I have another good encounter where I have the opportunity to talk to it and say something to it to see if it reacts to me, I don't know. But maybe one day I'll have that opportunity, and that's kind of the day I'm looking for.
Sure seems to me like you probably will get the chance to have an opportunity like that. You're definitely on their radar. There's no disputing that. Well, having said that, Shawn, we're about out of time, but before we get out of here, please take this opportunity to promote Lone Star Cryptid Research again.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Lone Star Cryptid Research. It's easy to find on Facebook. It's a red logo with a Bigfoot holding his middle finger up around one side of the Texas flag and a Dogman tearing into the other end of a Texas flag. I kind of use the Bigfoot with the middle finger idea as a kind of a joke about how, people talk about not being able to find Bigfoot, and it's kind of his way of being like, you can't catch me or see me, but kind of use that as a play. I thought it would be funny and comedic to add that into our logo, but yeah, please, I got the Instagram too, so you can connect with me on Instagram and the Facebook. If you're, around the San Antonio or any of the communities around San Antonio, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, Blanco, Hondo, even up towards Austin and all that area, Marble Falls, please reach out to us. We're always looking for new areas to go and explore and check out and see if we can find evidence, and even talk to people about, their encounters and things like that. And if they, need someone that will believe them and sit down and sympathize with them about their encounters where they won't be made fun of or anything of that nature, please reach out to us. All three of us have had encounters, and we know what it's like to be ridiculed for, seeing these things and believing in them, because Lord knows I've been ridiculed by people, but I've turned some people on now with my encounters to believe that there is something out there. So yeah, please have, come on the Facebook or Instagram, message me, and I'll be glad to talk to anybody and check out their areas.
And for anyone listening who wants to contact Shawn to report an experience, I'm going to post links to both the Facebook and Instagram page for LCR. That'll make it really easy for you to find them in the description for tonight's show. Before we get out of here, Shawn, would you like to also promote Nick's Texas Hill Country Dogman as well?
Yeah, he is. He's also on my page under Texas Hill Country Dogman. If you'd like to check him out, he posts some videos and stuff like that too. And he goes out and talks to a lot of people and meets a lot of people. He's definitely had some pretty good experiences and stuff like that. And then also Rick Tolos, Texas Hill Country Bigfoot, he is linked through us too. So, if you have any Bigfoot experiences or anything like that, you can always reach out to him too. And the three of us work together on a lot of the research that we do. So please feel free to give them some attention and talk to them too. They have different experiences. So it's, I find it good to communicate and work with each other. And, everybody has different experiences, and we can always bounce great ideas off each other and get out there and do some really good research.
That's really good. Well, having said that, thanks again so much for coming on to share the details of those experiences with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Vic. You do good for this community. It's good to hear your show and listen to people come on and talk about what they've been through. I know it's kind of hard for some people, but and I love your show. I love listening to it. It's great to hear other people's encounters, and I thank you for what you do too.
Oh, you're welcome. I wouldn't have it any other way. But thanks again so much for your time, and have a great night.